Is Dave Crane, and it's a tragic fact that many of the people who die from a coronavirus pandemic die alone, in isolation, and their families never get to say goodbye or have closure. I've created this NLP hypnosis audio to allow you to finally have that closure. Remember to celebrate the life, not the loss. And please feel free to share this audio with anybody who needs it. It will get better. You're never alone. Stay safe. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Crane. Welcome to Speak on Stage, where I share with people different ways of communication so you can drive your brand, drive your relationships, and position yourself as somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about. Today's show is slightly different from normal, very simply because I want to dedicate today's show to something that's very close to me and very close to many billions of people all around the world. Whether it's happening to you right now and you're suffering from coronavirus, in which case my heart goes out to you, or you got friends suffering from coronavirus, or you know people who've suffered from coronavirus, this is a very difficult time for everybody on the planet. I want to be able to share some tips and some ideas that I've got as a practicing hypnotherapist for 20 plus years that may ease the pain. Today I got the message from a dear friend of mine. I was chatting to him last night on WhatsApp that he may well be infected. He's gone into isolation. He's at home. His family have moved out because he doesn't want anybody else to catch anything just in case. So this is a really difficult time for him and everybody else to be able to deal with. For me, as an onlooker, I've tried to keep myself as safe as I can do. I see my role as much as possible to help you, to be able to position you, to be able to deal with stuff and help others all around the world, including yourself, when it comes to being able to deal with the challenges of dealing with the loss and also love. People are going to lose a lot of love during this time because relationships will split. And it's the hardest time possible to be able to deal with that because it's not like you can suddenly go out and meet somebody new. So this is dedicated to being able to get over the challenges of the mental stress of the coronavirus and the task it's put on all of us to be able to step up and be stronger than ever before. With that, I'm going to dedicate certain parts of it to teaching you hypnotherapy, but also to be able to share with you something that I've put together, which I believe will really help. So what I'm going to do is show you a QR code for something that I put together. If you put your phone onto this, or you take a screenshot of this QR code here, it will help you because it should take you to a page which is on SoundCloud and an audio I've created called The Chair. The Chair allows you to be able to say in hypnosis, in a trance state, goodbye to anybody to give you closure. I'll explain more about it, but that's a QR code. I'll leave it up for this section and remove it a little bit later when we get into some other stuff. So we'll be looking at the fortitude that you have for your own mental health. I don't know why I've gone on blurry then, but for some reason I seem to have gone blurry, maybe because it's focused on this. Let me just remove that. Nope, staying blurry. And let's go back to this one, see if that's better. There we go. I'll avoid that camera for a little while, because for some reason it doesn't like me very much. What do you mean you don't like me very much? I can understand that, but it's just that kind of show where we've got to have empathy, so just pretend to like me a bit longer. So, in today's show, we're going to be looking at this. Very key to it, 7 questions you get asked as a mental strength coach, and I'll be going through the answers with you to explain exactly how you can do more self-help And if you're reaching out and looking after a family or friends or a loved one or people in your community or even in your company, it will give you a number of tips to be able to move forward. Now today, as you probably guessed, my tone is very different from normal. I'm not trying to have a laugh with this at all. If I do laugh, it will be because it just seems to be that kind of situation, just to break the tone. But I'm trying to be as respectful as possible with the type of content we're sharing today. I'll also be going through a number of different areas and really concentrating on what it takes to be able to deal with the big challenges of mental health in two separate parts. One is the things that people feel when they're involved in grief, and the second part is the things that you should be concentrating on to help you get through it better. So the whole show is really dedicated towards creating as much as possible the opportunity, if you're not a mental health professional, to be able to do as much self-care as you can do, because the cost of medical can be really expensive, it can be unavailable, and sometimes you don't feel comfortable going out and reaching out, but maybe you should do sometimes, because you get a chance to talk to people who are there to help you. So as always, we're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope and Twitter, and I love to have your feedback and your thoughts and your questions as well. It's a very difficult and different show today, as I mentioned, all about how to cope with the challenges that we have to face as a direct result of COVID. But even so, it's still worth getting your coffee. I'm going to have mine here, as always, and making sure that you take notes, because there will be stuff that's really good for you, if not now, certainly for later on.
The COVID-19 pandemic is not only a medical crisis, but a psychological one. Along with the collective anxiety, stress, and sadness comes collective loss and sorrow. Loss can shake our senses of self. Many of us will have to cope with the loss of loved ones in the midst of this pandemic. Many are also grieving their sense of safety, of social connection, of financial security. Losing a job, not having a graduation ceremony, not being able to attend a funeral, all are losses to be grieved. What we are experiencing now is a living loss, and as we move forward, people will continue to experience losses we can't yet predict. Psychologists say that in addition to grieving what is now missing from our lives, we may also grieve for the ways in which those losses affect our senses of self and personal identity. If part of who you are is defined by social interactions, what does it mean for you when you are quarantined at home? It helps to name and claim our grief. People often have a vague sense of anxiety or suffering, but putting words to those losses can help them identify ways to move forward. Psychologists recommend journaling to help with this process. Since most of us have never been through anything like this, it can help to explore how you got through another challenging transition, like a divorce or losing your job. How did you heal and recover through that process? You can likely apply some of those strategies to this situation. Social connections are still important. Psychologists encourage people to stay connected with their social support networks through phone calls, text messages, video chat, and social media. For many people, it will take time to recover from their losses. Keep checking in on friends and family members even after this period of isolation ends. Grief is natural, and most people are resilient. Though grief is difficult, it helps to recognize that it's natural and serves a purpose. Grief can help people turn inward and adjust to a new way of life without the people, places, or things they have lost. Research suggests that once a crisis has passed, most people are able to bounce back and move forward with their lives. Know that while grieving, it's normal to fluctuate between moments of sadness and mourning and moments of acceptance or even happiness. It's also important to remember that grief is temporary. The difficult feelings will pass. For more information on how to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, visit APA's Pandemic Resource page.
So with that, it's a look at the kind of areas where grief are real for many people, and we'll be looking at a doctor soon who's able to do more than just treat his patients. He's actually looking after, as a therapist, all the staff like working under him, because we all have to find a way of pulling ourselves together And you can pretend that things are fine and great, and there's nothing wrong with that either. You've got to find your own way of dealing with the challenges. Now, I've talked before about how your mind works, so I'm going to give you a little insight into this diagram again, just to illustrate exactly how it is that you'll be dealing with all the stuff that we're talking about. If you look at this diagram here, then you can see the water or the wavy line. Let's imagine like an iceberg. So above the surface, willpower in red, short-term memory, critical abilities, and logical decisions. Those are the bits that we normally deal with. Those are the things that we always have control over. If you look at where the challenges are, they're below the surface. This is why it's so difficult to be able to deal with it. So I'm going to show you this in a moment. Just have a look again at the diagram. If you look at what's below the surface, written in brown, you've got your habits, your beliefs, your long-term memory, your values, your emotions, your protective factor, your imagination, and your senses. They're in your subconscious mind. Now the thing is, your emotions are really what's driving so much of this, and the memories that you've got of people and the thoughts. So if you imagine this is your iceberg, okay? This below the surface is the bit you can't affect. This above the surface is our normal conscious state. So therefore, being upset and being stressed and everything being on top of you, something happens below the surface. So it's like an itch. It's really hard to scratch. It's really hard to deal with. And so there are ways of being able to deal with it rationally, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you're able to affect the way that it hits you deep below the surface. And so part of today's show will be to dedicate showing you how to do that. Now I realize not everybody will stay on the line all the way through, so what I want to do is, as quickly as possible, share with you an audio where you can go and get this straight away. It is free. I created it. I'm a hypnotist, as you probably are aware by now. If you scan that, it will take you to SoundCloud, where you can go and download or just listen to a copy of The Chair. Now, The Chair is a special audio program I put together. It's about 40 minutes long, and it takes you on a journey in your mind. So it puts you into hypnosis, so you're chilled out. So don't do it while you're driving. Listen to it when you're at home, and you're able to relax in a chair for about 45 minutes or so. It puts you into a relaxed state. It puts you onto a mountainside in your mind, so your imagination is there. And it takes you through some mist. Now, in the mist, you'll see a chair. And in the chair will be a long-loved person. Now, this applies to coronavirus, but could apply to anybody who's missing somebody. Could be a parent, it could be a friend, or somebody who's no longer with us. And it gives you a limited amount of time to talk to that person in your mind. And you can talk to them and hear them, and any experiences and things you wanted to say to them, you can say during that time. It's really effective. I've done this with many hundreds of people in reality, not just giving you the audio here. And it gives you a finite amount of time to put together closure with that person. And then, after a period of time, it allows that person to release you and you release them, and they disappear back into the mist, and you can carry on. But the beautiful thing is, with this audio, if you want to go back and visit them again and again and again, you can do. And also, if you want to share this with anybody, then you're welcome to as well. When you do go and you use this QR code, it will take you to this page on SoundCloud, okay? So there's The Chair, Stay Safe, Dave Crane, with that little picture of me with the wings, filmed in Dubai. And I really think you'll find it effective, especially if you're having a challenging time right now. So next up, I want to look at the situation in one of the hospitals. This is in the US, where a local doctor is looking after his team as well as looking after his patients. I share this with you because of the insights that come from it, but also the fact that whatever you're going through, there are other people who have their own journeys and their own experiences, and you're not alone. I'd love to have your thoughts and your comments here, but if you feel you don't need to and you don't want to, then that's fine as well. But you can still reach out for me for normal social media as well. Okay then, you're watching Speak on Stage. Here's a local doctor who cares.
These are hard times. We all know it, and they're taking a toll on just about all of us, including those on the front line who fight to save lives and prevent others from getting sick. So we were intrigued when medical reporter Meg Ferris told us about a doctor who's doubling as a therapist to his colleagues. Here's her story.
When the healers are seeing so much loss, who's going to heal their pain, especially after losing as many as 6 patients in one night?
We're used to saving lives. If we lose a patient, we feel like we failed.
UMC emergency physician Dr. Jay Kaplan became that emotional healer.
We'd worry for our patients. We'd worry for our families because we didn't want to bring it home to them. And we'd worry for ourselves.
His healthcare colleagues had more than just emotional battle wounds from patients, but their personal lives too.
2 of the staff who were there, one had lost 5 friends. And one had lost in their community, in their local neighborhood, 20 people.
So he began group sessions to motivate and encourage.
And it's okay if periodically you feel like you need to go in a closed room and cry. Just tell folks if they hear you crying not to worry, that you're just having to let it go.
He took away uncertainty by sharing when numbers were going down and the difference they were making, that PPE, ventilators, and ICU beds were going to be available. He gave permission to feel fear. He shared his poetry writings. He was even asked to do a session for medical staff in New York when one of their fellow emergency room doctors took her own life. She was someone he knew. Dr. Kaplan's coworkers say it's helping.
You know, our staff was definitely very stressed out. They were very anxious, full of fear. He was able to transpose that fear into hope.
Dr. Kaplan says find meaning in what you're going through and learn from Noah's Ark.
The first is don't miss the boat. The second is remember that we're all in the same boat. And the third is plan ahead. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark.
He adds inspire and connect because no one wants to feel alone now. Meg Farris, Eyewitness News.
Dr. Kaplan says well-being and resilience are crucial to longevity in practicing medicine and preventing burnout. And that, in turn, creates better health outcomes for patients.
So with that, it's a challenging show. Even for me, it's challenging to be able to put it together and share ideas with you, but I'm going to make sure I get through this because it's important. Love your thoughts. Also, by the way, I don't have any specific numbers for you or websites for you to go to, but I would always urge going to Google. You don't have to go through this alone, but one thing I will say, which is very important, is when you're on a plane, or the days where I used to get on a plane, they used to tell you that if the oxygen masks come down, tend to yourself before you tend to anybody else. With a simple reason. The fact is, if you don't look after yourself first and you put a mask on your child, if a fire breaks out, your child can't take you through the smoke and off the plane because it can't carry you. But if you put the mask on you, you can carry the child to safety. So I'd urge you, safety first for you. Mental safety, mental fortitude, looking after yourself, doing whatever it takes. As the doctor was saying there, if you need to go away and have a cry and a weep, do whatever it takes you to a position where you can be feeling better, and then from there you're in a better position to be able to help others. If you don't do it that way, then you can find that other people can bring you down and you can bring them down, and it doesn't actually help either of you, apart from the fact that communally maybe you can get through it together. But do whatever it takes. It's not being selfish, it's being efficient, and it's being smart as well. One of the things that I used to do as a technique when I was working as a practicing therapist, not doing so much of it now, is when I was working with clients that I was going for a really hard time, I would say to them, imagine that you're talking to somebody who's got a monkey and the monkey is stressed and the monkey is misbehaving and the monkey is terrible and the monkey's maybe got some kind of disease that makes you feel terrible as well, and they're trying to give you the monkey. You don't have to take the monkey from them. Similarly, and this is about stress, it's about dealing with counseling somebody. Similarly, imagine that they're writing down the horrible things that are going on in their lives, and then they're throwing at you, and they bounce off you and land in a waste paper basket. You don't have to take them on. So why is this important to share with you? Well, remember these two techniques, because what tends to happen is we do a kind of exorcism. We go into a deep dive with somebody. We go into an experience with them. And as we're in that experience, we feel everything that they feel, and it can be really painful and leave us without the opportunity to get out of it. That's why it's so important for you to be able to look after you first. And as always, this show is about helping you to be able to do as much as possible to make you as strong as possible as well. So there's the QR code again for the chair. Feel free, I'll just move to this side, to scan it with your phone or take a screenshot so you can scan it later on. It will take you to a SoundCloud file called The Chair where you can talk to loved ones who are no longer with us in your mind and get closure. Because so many people don't get a chance to say goodbye. And if you're not somebody who's going through this, but you know other people, please feel free to share this show. There is no sale, no nothing involved. It's all free. And it's my gift to you as much as it can help. And share the audio for anybody who you feel would benefit from getting it as well. Next up, I want to be able to look at this. This is a deep dive into, to understand really what happens when you have a challenge of dealing with other people and helping other people, but you really don't know how to deal with it. So welcome back to Speak on Stage. My name is Dave Crane, and today's show is all about this. It's all about the ability to cope with loss of love or life. I'm especially focusing on life because of coronavirus. This isn't about dating necessarily, but a lot of the things that are challenging for you will be things that certainly, if you go through a breakup in a relationship or a divorce, as many people are doing as a result of the coronavirus being locked into a small space with somebody, and the arguments can flare up, and you find a person that you chose to marry maybe isn't a person that you really want to spend the rest of lockdown time with. Many people don't have the option of moving out. They're still there, but they're actually split and living in different parts of the house. There's loads of challenging ramifications that go on. By the way, if you do go through a split, and I will explain this later when we go into the strategy part of today's show, you've got a thing called anchors. Anchors are when you have things that make you feel emotionally attached to stuff. So, for instance, your favorite song has an anchor. When you hear it, you feel good because you remember when you felt good when you heard it before. Same for your favorite perfume. You put it on, or your favorite aftershave makes you feel like going out or feeling good because you got it for Christmas or for Eid or for a birthday or something like that. We have anchors all the time. Now, one of the challenges is if you're living in a house, that's not a challenge. We all live in houses or some description. But when somebody's not there anymore, it's really difficult because you sit there and you talk to them or you wait for them to come in, and it's really hard to deal with. Here's a really interesting way of dealing with it. Move all the furniture around, and if you can, redecorate the room. Why is that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because what happens is you end up having a different room with new anchors being placed in it. So you put the TV on one side, you move the sofa and the chairs around, and maybe a coffee table at a different angle. Change the pictures or paint the room. That way when you sit down, it becomes your new room. And even though the other person isn't there anymore, you don't have reminders which are anchored onto you. Remember I showed you what the diagram was of the iceberg. All those things below the surface won't be anchored and they won't be triggered because it'll feel like a brand new room. And that's a great way of getting over a split in a relationship, and certainly with COVID and the challenges it's got, it's very, very effective for that. I hope that this show is good for you. Please feel free to share it, make comments. I'll answer everything I can for you. And even after the show, feel free to reach out to me directly through any of the social media platforms. And as much as I can do, I'll be there for you to answer as many questions as I can do. And also seek out more professional help. Google Samaritans in the UK is fantastic, but I'm sure there's equal equivalents all around the world of people who volunteer their help in coaching and counseling and therapy to help you. So, okay, let's go for this section now. I'm a deep dive, 7 questions that I get most often as a mental strength coach. So let's go through them and I'll answer them as best as I can do. First of all, you want to be mentally strong, but I don't know how to get started. What should I do first? Well, in order to be most effective and to get the best results, you need to be able to take a big deep dive into you and understand who you really are. You also have to look at your diet, look at your exercise, look at the people you surround with, the music you listen to, the TV shows you watch, the books you read. These are all little things that might only make a few percentages, but if you put them together, they can really make a challenge. When I used to be younger, much younger, clearly, I used to live in the beach, not on the beach, because then I'd be homeless. I used to live on a house on the beach in Redcar in Cleveland, in the northeast of England. As a teenager, I used to put my Walkman, do you remember them? With a cassette, ka-ching, 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 and I'd go and walk. I used to listen to lots of sort of deep love songs and music like that, and I always found that what we'd do would just make me really depressed. I'd come back home and I'd had a good think about life, but I'd feel terrible, and I would be in such a sore and sad mood for the rest of the time. I decided to not listen to that music anymore. I stopped making tapes like that. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't feel bad emotions. I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to music like that, but I found my life became happier when I stopped doing stuff like that. Now, you will have to come to terms with certain things, but you can get the edge on other things. There's nothing wrong with going deep into a dive, but it's better when you've got anchors that you know can bring you out of it afterwards. Does that make sense? All right, number 2. How do you help someone else who needs mental strength? Well, first of all, make sure that as you're going through stuff, then you've learned lots of lessons and you can share them with them. Their experience will be completely different to yours. So sometimes what you need to do is just listen. Sometimes that's what people really need. Often they don't need you to tell them what the answers are. Often they just need to know that somebody else cares as much as they do about them. As for the mental strength areas, as I've said to you, as much as possible, listening to them and asking open questions. As a coach or a counselor, sometimes it's a combination of listening, sometimes it's empathy and nodding. You can get so much just out of nodding while listening to somebody. And as I mentioned, you don't have to take all their stuff and wear it. You can keep it with them, but don't let them know that you're not taking it on. And they'll feel that they're getting out of their system. Create easier ways for them to be able to let off steam as well. Going for a walk if you can't get out of the house, but listening to music that makes you feel better, watching a movie that cheers you up, anything that changes the mood, because this is a long-term challenge. Many, many people deal with depression. I actually deal with depression as well. It's true. Despite the fact I'm happy-go-lucky and all the rest of it, I didn't realize how much it was affecting me because I don't acknowledge it. When I started acknowledging it, I realized the best way to do effective therapy on myself is to have go slow days. Days when I just don't play. Some of the days when I'm not online, I'm not sharing stuff with you, is a day when I've just gone, you know what, I can't do this. So I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to take a day to do something selfish for me. Not selfish, it's about helping me feel better so I can make you feel better. And there's nothing wrong, there's no set rules. Remember, we don't know how long this is going to go on. So what you have to keep doing is keep recharging your batteries until, like running a marathon, you put one foot in front of the other until you get to the end. And when we get to the end, we'll all be out, we'll all be having fun, and it doesn't matter how you got there as long as we all get there. Number 3, do I need a therapist or a coach to help me? They do help. If you can get somebody professional for free, that's better. But even a shoulder to cry on is very good. Best way to do it is to start with Google. There's so many things on YouTube, so many things that are put out there. This show has been created to help people. Some people will just watch this show and share this show. And then you can go from the platform that I've shared here and the audio that I'm going to be giving you later on, which I've already shared with you, I'll go back to that soon, to be able to get access to more help and more therapy and more coaching. Doesn't matter what you take on, as long as it's helping. The difference between a therapist is they tend to be looking from a more medical point of view. With a coach, they tend to be throwing ideas at you and getting you to respond to it in a way that you think is best to be able to move out of it. And mentors tend to be somebody who turns around and tells you from their experience what they did to get you through it. There are lots of different types for lots of different types of people. You find the one that works best for you. And you may have several. Okay, number 5, if I only have 5 minutes, number 4, if I only have 5 minutes every day to focus on building mental strength and exercise, what should I do? Well, there's a superpower that most people don't know about, and that's gratitude. If you show gratitude for the world and keep a gratitude diary, It's basically there. Can you see that? All about, write down all the things at the beginning of the day, end of the day, any time of day, but beginning of the day is usually good, and end of as well. About that you're grateful for, about the world, like being alive and having food and having shoes and having good friends and having Dave's show to watch almost every day. Whatever it is that you write down, it starts to make you feel warmer inside. Now here's a way that it works as a magic superpower. And I can tell you this because as a hypnotherapist for 20 years, I know what makes people's minds tick. And you may have seen in previous shows, me showing you stage hypnosis shows where you get people to do crazy stuff. It's because I know how to program your mind effectively. So what happens is your mind is a supercomputer and it'll focus on anything that you're interested in. So if you're watching the news and it's all negative stories, your mind will find more negative stories. If you're having a bad day and you say, I'm having a bad day, your brain goes, right, the boss says they're interested in a bad day. Let's find more examples. When you focus on gratitude and happiness and love and care and connection, your mind goes, right, let's get some more evidence of that. That's what the boss is interested in. So as much as you can, reframe it, change it around. As much as you're able to do that, it's really effective for making sure that you can find the very best. Sometimes what you have to do is name what the problems are to be able to get over them. But if you can't name them, you're not sure what they are, just do what you need to. But a gratitude book and changing it so you're focusing on the things that make you feel better is a good start. Number 5, if I struggle with mental health issues like depression, does that mean I'm weak? No, it doesn't, not at all. Most people have a yin and yang side to them. Most people do deal with depression in some way, shape or form. It's a hidden disease. I say disease, it's probably a mindset, but it can cause disease because it can create problems for you internally if you allow it to fester and create stuff. Most people have it. Many people have a real problem dealing with it. It can be medicated, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But it does take empathy and it does take understanding from people around you. And it does take you to recognize it. I got mine because I realized I had a blood test and the breakdown said probably with depression as well. I had no clue that was coming up. But being in lockdown makes perfect sense, and challenges that we all go through of being away from the family and traveling and everything else could be something that mounts up. And so there's nothing wrong with it. That doesn't mean you're weak at all. And what is weak? What's the comparison between somebody who's weak and somebody who's strong? Somebody who's able to BS it and pretend it doesn't exist? That's not particularly strong. In fact, it's not, because it's got to go somewhere and it'd probably end up being depression. So no, it doesn't make you weak, but it does give you an inspiration and an idea about what you need to do to address, to make things better, and start with that. But it's not weak. Do something about it and it'll make you feel strong instantly, or at least over time. Number 6, how do I know if I'm making progress? Well, some questions, and I'll go with the ones that we have here. First of all, has my thinking changed? Have my emotions changed and got better? And have my behaviors changed? Sometimes you're too close to yourself to be able to answer those questions properly. You have to look at your effect that you have on people around you who are maybe hiding from you because you bite them a lot because you're in a bad mood. And also feel internally better. Remember, emotional intelligence is not about the ability to change your emotions all the time. It's about understanding your emotions. If I get angry in a restaurant because I've had bad treatment from a staff, or the manager was terrible, or the food came out uncooked, I'm not going to bottle it up. I'm going to let people have my anger. Why? Not because I'm being horrible, but because I don't want to carry that poison in me, walk out and feel terrible because I should have said something about it. But what I will do is I'll change the type of energy. What I'll do is I'll say, how can I best help them and relieve this anger at the same time? So instead of punching them and throwing the plates across the table and saying this place is rubbish, I'll call over the manager, and with the same energy and intensity that I feel, I'll tell them, and I'll set up the scene first. Can I share with you a couple of problems that I've had with your place to make sure that you can deal with it better in the future, so you understand why people like me don't want to come back again? Of course, the manager's going to say yes, and then I can let them have it completely. Food was cold, treatment was bad, walked in, my staff didn't sit us down. These are things for anybody else. They won't tell you, won't come back. I'm telling you now because I think it's important for you to know that I'm having a very bad experience at your restaurant. The odds are they'll say thank you, or they'll always say thank you, and they may give you a free meal as a result, or sign off on the deal, but that's not the point. The point is you don't have to bottle up that crap. You can get rid of it. Yeah? Okay? And number 7. I struggle with almost everything in life. Is there still hope for me? Of course there is. Everybody struggles. Everyone finds it difficult. Imagine the swimming pool that everybody's in. You're trying to stay afloat. Some people find it easy just to do legs on their back. Some people tread water. Some people coach other people. We all have a life that goes up and down like this. Everybody. Some things are easy. Some things are difficult. You might think being rich makes life easy. Well, it makes it easy to think about finances. Though there will be rich problems like tax and so on, unless you're a certain person where you don't pay any. Don't go there. But everybody has to deal with different sized problems around them. But life doesn't give you anything you can't deal with. Every single thing you go through, you have the ability and the strength and the stamina to be able to cope with it. I promise you. So that's the 7 things I'd like to be able to share with you on your mental fortitude and your ability to fix things. If you want to go to Business Insider and take a screenshot of this, the 7 questions I ask most often as a mental strength coach, you can go through and read more about this. And this is from Amy Merlin, I think it is. Amy Morin. And you can see her answers in full on that. I hope this is useful for you and you're getting enough out of it. I have an audio for you, and it's called The Chair. I want to share with you now exactly what The Chair has been created to do. This is Speak on Stage.
My name is Dave Crane, and it's a tragic fact that many of the people who die from a coronavirus pandemic die alone, in isolation, and their families never get to say goodbye or have closure. I've created this NLP hypnosis audio to allow you to finally have that closure. Remember to celebrate the life, not the loss. And please feel free to share this audio with anybody who needs it. It will get better. You're never alone. Stay safe. Thank you.
Right now, the cheat sheets, I'm going to be sharing with you some strategies to be able to deal with this. And you might want to just take a pen and paper and write down notes. One thing I will say to you, there's the QR code, by the way. If you want to just scan that, I'll be popping it up at certain times all the way through today's presentation. When you do go to that QR code, you'll see the SoundCloud website, and you're looking for The Chair by Dave Crane. It's free for you, I promise you. Share it with who you need to. If you haven't lost anybody at this moment in time, I'm glad for that, but you may want to talk to a long lost loved person that you haven't had an opportunity to, and that's what it's dedicated to do, to help you. And so feel free to share it with anybody who you know would benefit from that. Right, today's a bit of a challenging show for me, I've got to be honest. It takes you to that page, and there's, look, I've got bunny rabbit ears. It doesn't look like that, it actually looks like that, but you know what? I look a bit like the original Thor. Look at that, it's great. What's that? This looks stupid, Dave. Yeah, thank you very much. There's a QR code, feel free to get a copy of that, take a screenshot if you need to, and then let's look at the actual bits that I promised I'd be sharing with you. When you're feeling low, how to cope with it. And let's look first of all at what you are feeling, because then once you've worked out what you're feeling, then you're able to address what the challenges are. And if you're helping somebody else with this, then I'm sure it will really help them as well. So let's go and look at it effectively. So you're feeling that you may have lost someone, a best friend or a soulmate. That's perfectly reasonable to have these feelings, by the way. You might have the guilt that you didn't do enough, or everything possible. But one thing I will tell you, that we always do the best that we can with the amount of knowledge that we have at any given time. So anything you've done in the past, you never make mistakes, you only ever do the right thing. But sometimes when you look back at it, you didn't know new stuff, but that's not your fault. You do what you can. But in any situation like that, I promise you, you will have done the very best that you could. You feel guilt that you're relieved that that your partner's suffering is over, that they've finally gone. Yeah, but that's a real thing. Remember, we're not meant to deal with this at all, but we are dealing with this, and it's a real challenge for every single person. Number 4, and these are the things that you're coping with, and this is the things I know you're probably dealing with, at least one of these. Fear about the future and being alone. I won't answer all of these things, I'm just highlighting what they are. Promise you, you're never alone. There are ways of reaching out and creating new friends and family all the time. It's going to sound really terrible to say, and I don't mean this as a trivial experience at all, but I remember when one of my dogs got run over, and it was a terrible experience because I had some friends staying in their house, and they went across the road to a petrol station to go and get a drink, and the dogs were just happy. And normally the dogs would follow me into the house. One of the dogs followed me into the house and ran back to go and see where my guest was, saw them crossing the road, went after them across the road and got hit by a car and dragged. And in the end, I had to be there to have the dog put down, which was a beautiful but horrible experience at the same time, being there and breathing their last with them. And the house grieved. You could feel the house grieving. It's really difficult. Do you know what really fixed the problem? We got a new dog. And that's not saying you should certainly just go like a conveyor belt, get a new one, put a new one in, but the new dog peed everywhere. And the new dog was full of energy and kept going missing. We'd have to find him everywhere. And so it ended up being a distraction. It ended up being a different change of mind and a different mindset. And we were coping with, where's the dog gone? Oh, look what it's doing now. And it wasn't peeing everywhere. It was house trained anyway, but you get my point. The point was that just changing the energy and doing whatever it takes allowed us to get over. And it's important to be able to celebrate the life and not just mourn the passing of somebody. That changes your energy too. All right, number 5 with this, and this is about the challenges of what you're feeling. There's nothing wrong with feeling these. The loss of identity, because you've been in a relationship for such a long time and now you're sort of defined as being on your own, and that goes to most people in business. Many stand-up comedy acts where they split or somebody passes beforehand, and then the one that survives is not as good as the two together. A number of different acts I could talk about that from entertainment. You have to move on, you have to do the very best you can, and then there's concerns about money. If you're used to somebody else being there and looking after you, then that can be really difficult to deal with. These are natural, all these things people deal with all the time, and so if you're feeling that more frequent thoughts about your own mortality, realistically as well, thinking, oh my goodness, that means I could go at any point. The truth is we always have been able to go at any point. So what I want now is to again share this QR code with you. You can just take a scan of it and go to the chair and share it with anybody that you want, or listen to it yourself. It will give you closure and allow you to talk to somebody who you haven't seen for a long time. One of the things that I've always been able to do to deal with these challenges is to imagine, and I live in Dubai, so people leave all the time, friends that you've had for many, many years, sometimes lose their job or just get a better job offer somewhere else, and they leave and go somewhere else. And I always imagine as much as possible that maybe they have gone to a different country, because that's true in that case. And if I lose a loved one, then I imagine they've just gone to live in a different country as they have now. And in the days before you had social media, you wouldn't easily be able to contact them, and in this case you're not easily able to contact them. Okay, so with this, I want to be able to share my thoughts and tips for you to be able to deal with this. Today's show is all about coping with loss and love, and I understand if you are finding it painful with this, you don't have to watch it, but you can take a note of where this is, share it with other people, and return back to it at your own leisure, or pause it as well, and I'll still be here for you. We won't be talking about this tomorrow, but we may return to this subject as long as you need me to be able to discuss it. Okay, understand that this is your journey. The hero's journey is all about your particular journey. This isn't anybody else's journey. They have got their journey. It goes as far and as long as theirs needs to, and yours does as well. So concentrate on you. Like I said with the oxygen mask, now these are about reframing the way that you deal with it. It doesn't mean it necessarily makes you feel much, much better, but it does put it into a better perspective for you. In which case, this is not the end of your journey, the end of a story. It's just a chapter that's passed, and a new chapter opens with new people to meet, new things to do, new ways of experiencing life. So see it as chapters. When you go to bed and you go to sleep, that's the end of one chapter. Wake up the next morning, it's a brand new one. Imagine you're in a reality TV show, and it really does help. Number 3, recognize that everyone goes through this eventually, sooner or later, in some day. Let me tell you from the point of view of somebody who keeps dogs. I've had dogs now for 25 years off and on. In fact, most of my life I've had dogs. Dogs have a way of dealing with it. much better than we do. They don't need to rationalize when they feel ill or when they're going to die. They just know it's going to happen. And they've kind of come to get used to it. Every time that one of my dogs has passed, with the exception of one, I had to make a decision about their suffering. And they know it's your job. And they trust it's your job. And there will be people who have conflicting arguments with me, or every life is sacred, and I completely agree. But what I'm saying is, from my experience of viewing dogs, it gets to a point where they just go, you know what, I don't like this, I'm not a dog anymore. This is horrible. We hold on to it. We go, right, I've got to get every scrap out of it, even if it's painful. But they don't. They just go, I'm done. We're good. And that's maybe why they play so much and have so much fun around us. That's the way I see it anyway. You may have your own spin in it, and you're very welcome to share it with me. But that's one that gets me through. Okay, so we're talking about coping with loss of life and love. Energy doesn't disappear. For anybody who studies physics and chemistry, you'll know that when you put your kettle on, you put water in, it turns into steam, and then the steam, when it goes back into a cup, turns into water. Energy doesn't change. At some point in the future, we may be able to harness the energy. It'll be like a sixth sense. You say, oh my goodness, look at this new app. It's able to see death energy. Oh, Granny's been here all the time. Hi, Granny, how are you? I'm good. Biscuits? No biscuits for me. I can't eat them. I'm dead. Or whatever. But the point is that energy doesn't disappear, and it never does. So the energy that's life energy doesn't go. It's just that we don't seem to be able to find out where it's gone. Not saying we won't. It might be a Wi-Fi code that we're missing, but quantum physics says that what we have around us is not the full picture. Things are in more dimensions than the 3D world that we're looking at. And so right now we don't have those answers, but it doesn't mean that you can't reach people, certainly using the techniques that I've got with the chair that I've given you as an audio, and I'll give you the link to that, the SoundCloud, for being able to get that later on. Okay. Recognize that the person is significant. That's important. Every person is significant. Everybody matters. But you do move on. Regardless, if you split in a relationship, same thing. But recognizing them and saying they were an important contribution to my life, and that's it. And then going back to who you are. Celebrating the life, the good times, and their contribution to you and to the world allows you to focus on things that you want, rather than missing and mourning what they had. One of my favorite heroes of all time, Prince, the singer, died at 59, created incredible music, lived in his own little world, and by far, of all the pop stars and musicians that have ever existed, in my opinion, he's been the most prolific and probably most talented of all musicians. Because he played about 30, 40, 50 different instruments at the top of the food chain. He was brilliant. He would make full albums of all the vocals and all the music and everything just played by him. When Sign of the Times came out as an album, it was a double album where he'd actually written about 10 albums and chose and cherry-picked the best of it to put in. They've now just brought out a box set of all the stuff he didn't use. His biggest challenge was that people wouldn't understand that he was constantly creating music all the time, and they wanted him to do one a year. And he was going like, no, I've got about 4 or 5 lined up this year. And so record companies had a real problem with his ability to be prolific. I love his music. He's no longer here, but I never met him, I didn't know him, but I can value him. And the same way is I need to think about what he would say to me. I can just know what I know about reading about him, about his attitude, and my brain is a supercomputer. It can interpret for me exactly what I think he would say. Is it true? No, it's not true, but for me it makes me feel better to be able to have that, and you have that for all the people you know and you loved and aren't there anymore. Same as you're doing coaching. If you want to be coached by Bugs Bunny, if anybody knows who Bugs Bunny is or remembers, you can think just what would Bugs Bunny say to me in this situation, and you'd get "What's up, Doc?" or something else coming back. Okay, share your emotions with somebody who can help you with empathy, love, and patience. There are lots of people who can help you. Some people who are distant from the problem. Some people who are close to the problem. There's nothing wrong with crying. It doesn't make you weak. Cry all the time. I cry every time I'm on a plane watching a movie where somebody wins. Doesn't even have to be a sad movie. Just somebody wins. I'm like that. I get my drink. My soup. Can't stop eating soup. Keeps filling up because I keep crying. But I go through it every time I'm on a plane. I think it's a thing on a plane anyway. But, There's nothing wrong with crying. It doesn't make you a weak person. It doesn't make you less of a person. It just means that you're human, okay? And there's going to be a lot of tears. All right, imagine the person in front of you, or imagine the person on the phone. I'll just move my head like this so you can see the whole sentence. What would they say to you right now? Your brain can interpret this, by the way. You don't have to think about it on your own. You don't have to feel that you are alone. You can always have your friends, your families, your parents, a loved one, or a partner. Imagine what they would say to you, and you can have full-on conversations, and it's not being mad. Your brain is there. It's got that programming ability. So use it. It's really powerful. Incidentally, before I get on to number 9, let me tell you that if you've lost your job and you're thinking about what do I do next, and what I'm saying right now is appealing to you, you should really consider studying as a therapist, as a counselor, learning NLP, learning EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, and EMDR, which is a really strong technique as well, and hypnosis, emotional intelligence, because this is all about the second pandemic. This is all about the fact that across the world, there are billions of people going into depression, anxiety, isolation, and it's not that they caught COVID. It might be the cause didn't recover from it. It might be somebody else did, or maybe it's just covered by the fear of what they're going through, having lost a job and so on. They need people, professional people who can help. So if you have lost your job and you're looking for a way to move forward, it's a great part of personal development with the therapy starting with you, but also you will be able to make money and earn from helping other people as they go through this. So I would always urge everybody, it's a really useful talent to have. Okay, so number 9, imagine like school or holidays at immigration, but live somewhere else, and that's it. They just don't live here anymore. Doesn't mean they're gone, you just can't contact them, but you can if you imagine the person in front of you, or imagine the person in your mind able to communicate, or through your phone. Doesn't mean you've gone bonkers, it just means you've got a coping mechanism, and it can really ease the pain. So you can talk to them. As I mentioned, your imagination can allow you to make them say things that you know they were going to say. Think about what artificial intelligence is on your phone. That is a learned system where it's copying human behavior, and it can be more intelligent as it gets to know you better. It answers you in the way that you want to be answered. There's no reason why you can't do that for a loved one who's no longer with us. Everything that they are and everything they've said and everything they've done is embedded in you. So you can think what would they say, and your brain will give you a couple of different options. Choose the one that feels most appropriate, and when you want to say things, do say them. So what message are they going to say to you? It could be a number of different things. Just interpret it and implement it if you feel that it works well for you. Rearrange your house, the routine and all the anchors, your routine where you sit when you have breakfast, all the things you do, having a cup of coffee. I mentioned about anchors before. If you sit there and they're not there anymore and you say, oh goodness me, we used to sit here together and watch this show, stop watching the show. It's like the guy goes to the doctor and says, doctor, it hurts when I do this with my arm. Or the doctor says, well, stop doing it then. It's just the truth. So make sure that you change your routine and change all the anchors, and it just won't affect you anymore. That's not being cold, that's being practical. Doesn't mean you're not honoring the person, it just means you're looking after yourself while you have to cope with it. Number 13, distract, treat yourself, do anything that makes you feel better. Surf things that make you feel happy, get on social media and distract yourself. Honestly, eat a lot of ice cream, listen to music loud, whatever gets you through the day is enough. Gets you through the night the same way. There are no rules in this. This is a temporary experience, it is a temporary feeling, and everybody goes through it and will go through it at some point. You will lose somebody, and at some point everybody will lose you. This is just a fact, like death and taxes. Now the way I like to think about it is actually more simple than that. The way I like to think about life is that you're just basically traveling on the path, on a road. You get traveling partners who travel with you, and at some point at the end of it, you've given it your best shot. So reinvent yourself. If you throw yourself into personal development and understanding what makes you tick, and you work out what do I need to do to make myself better, you'll find a new lease of life for you. Whether it's as a single person, as a person who can't contact their loved one, but you still have life in you. And that's all you need to have to be able to create that success. I did mention the fact that I have created this audio for you. There it is once again, the chair. That's on SoundCloud. If you've spent this time listening to me, and thank you for the time, and please get a copy of that. I think you can download it, but it's there to access and share with people. Share that link. You don't have to mention me, I don't care. Just share it with as many people as you can do, so they can get closure and they can feel a lot better as well. And as much as possible, as promised, I'm always there for you. Okay? So in summary, those are the ways I would recommend that you think about being able to alter your relationship with grief. I'm not saying it's disrespect to grief. You can feel it, but then moving on is very useful. If you don't move on, then you don't want to carry that around. It feels poisonous to you. And the most you can do to get yourself through this, the better. I hope today's been useful for you. I will be leaving you with a message of a video that I haven't played before, all about the ability to say goodbye. In many cases, I don't tend to say goodbye, I just say I'll see you soon. The only time I'll say goodbye is if somebody's been a real pain in the butt and I don't want to be friends with them anymore. The easiest way to get rid of them is just to say goodbye. The power of goodbye just says you're done. There's nothing you have in your life that you want, that I can possibly want, because it's always carried with some kind of I owe you something, or I feel obliged to give you something. So just goodbye, and that's it. But goodbye has lots of different ways of helping and affecting and changing the way you are. And I hope that this brings closure to you. If you need to reach out and chat to me, feel free. You can get me through social media. You can also go to thedavecrane.com, and all my different things are there for you to find me on all the different platforms as well. And here's the QR code one last time for you. If you just want to take a note of that, or take a screenshot. I'll be back tomorrow with a completely different subject, hopefully making you feel a lot better as a direct result. And that's basically what I'm here to do, just for you. So with that, it brings it to a close today. I hope you find closure. I hope you're able to deal with things a little bit better. There is room for a ton of life coaches out there and a ton of therapists. I'd love you to find a way of stepping up and stepping into that role, and it helps you at the same time as well. This is Speak on Stage. My name is Dave Crane. It's been a pleasure spending quality time with you. Look after yourself. Keep smiling. I'll see you next time.
Why do they say that your life passes before you die? Everything you've done, everywhere you've been, is there in front of your eyes. Why would it be the answers seem to come on your last dying breath? Well, it's very simple. Because you're trying to find a reason to get out of this mess. If you imagine that everything you've done, every battle you've ever had, every time you've tried to save your money, your life, the people you've ever had, every challenge that's gone to you in your work, your school, your friends, your love, have all been driven to you by whatever your spiritual belief is, your heaven above. But the end will come, and it'll be left to you, and you'll be on your final journey, and it won't matter what you say or do, because you'll have to go out and earn the life, the chance, the way to move forward. The answers are what will keep you going, and be battling for your dying breath. Keep you going. So why is it that your life should pass before your eyes? Why is it everything that comes to you should be such a big surprise? The answer is simple. The answer is deep and more profound than you could ever know. What you're looking for is something in your life that will let you understand and let you say no. If you go back to everything you've ever done, everything you've ever been tested on, everything you've become, if you were to take a chance on yourself and bet on your life, would you turn around and say it was worth it? All that trouble, all that strife. When you're left with your dying breath and you're revealing every single answer, everything that came to test you, every one that passed and went past you, you're left with the memories, and somewhere deep inside is the reason that you're scanning to see what will keep you alive. Now here's my thought to you. When it all comes back and you make those choices, you're thinking, why should I stay alive? What is it that I want to hold on to? Why would you want to? when it comes to your last time, here's my advice. Just make sure that every second, every day, of every hour, of every month, of every year that you've been alive, you've taken as far as you can. So ultimately, when it all passes by and you're lying there waiting, you'll turn around and say, life's been good. And now it's time to say goodbye.